Welcome, fertility sisters, to the True Fertility Podcast. I'm your host, Leah Nicole Trujillo, a wife, mom, and therapist turned fertility coach after a challenging 7-year journey to conceive. Join me for stories from those who've walked this path, tips for your fertility and IVF journey, and some fertility-related girl talk. So let's sprinkle some of that baby dust because it's time for True Fertility. Did you know that nutrition can boost your fertility by 69%? I certainly didn't, and my docs didn't mention much about it to me either. But after digging for information and reading books while trying to conceive, I learned how important nutrition is to help your body give you the best response to IVF. But with so much information out there, knowing what's true, what's false, and even where to start can feel like navigating a minefield. And with so much on the line, you don't want to make a misstep. So that's what brings me to my guest for today's episode, Grace Armstrong. She is a fertility nutritionist who I'm also proud to call my friend. In today's episode, we'll break down the biggest mistakes for eating for fertility, the deal with supplements, and cover what is the best diet for fertility. With a wealth of information to help you to get on the right path to optimize your fertility, this episode is not to be missed. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I wanted to offer my listeners an opportunity to snag my free class, Triple Your IVF Success with Less Stress. Inside this free masterclass, you'll receive 2 simple tools that you can start on today that have been proven to triple your success rates when trying to conceive. These tools not only help you boost your fertility, but also help you feel better now. So if you're looking to get your baby in your arms faster, reduce the number of IVF rounds, and ultimately save money, time, and energy, this is the tool for you. Go to www.leahnicolecoaching.com, that's LEANICOLE, coaching.com to grab this free class while it's available. Welcome back to another exciting episode of True Fertility Podcast. I'm Leah, and I am so thrilled to be here today with Grace Armstrong. She is the owner of East to West Nutrition. She's a fertility nutritionist who's my favorite Aussie, but she does work with women all over the world. And I'm so glad that you could join us today.
Hi. Yes, so thankful to be on the podcast. Thanks for asking me. And I'm super excited to get into this topic.
Now, some of you may not know this, but Grace is actually one of the first people that I reached out to and wanted to collaborate with because I saw her Instagram page, which if you haven't checked out, by the way, is amazing. She has so much information on there and has so many tips. And it was just in the very beginning of her Instagram page. I think maybe you had 200 followers at the time, maybe 100. And I was like, this girl is a superstar and I need to be as close to her as possible and collaborate with her somehow, some way. So again, I am so thrilled that you are here today and are on the podcast. So thanks again for being here.
I'm honestly so happy to be here. Yeah, thank you for reaching out and also making this podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we dive into all of the details in regarding nutrition and fertility, I wanted to just go ahead and ask you some rapid fire questions to just get to know you a little bit better and for the listeners as well. So are you ready for that challenge? Would you be up for that?
Yes, I'm up for it.
Okay, here it goes. Okay, chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Okay, me too. I'm with you on the chocolate thing. What is your favorite TV show that you're binging right now?
I'm actually back to binging Friends, and I do this every couple of years. I just pick like a random spot in one of the seasons and just go with it.
Uh-huh.
I've watched it so many times, so I know everything. But, but yeah, Friends.
Awesome. I have watched all of Friends, but I've only watched it one time through. So, yeah, that's one of your repeat ones, though, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it's like my comfort show.
Last question. If you had the opportunity to go to either concert, which one would you attend? Taylor Swift or Beyonce?
Beyonce, 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too. I'm
absolutely.
with you
Yeah.
on that. I don't think anything can beat those dance moves and show, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She's just the most powerhouse of women. But yeah, I feel like Beyonce is definitely closer to me through my childhood. And Destiny's Child, there's just no way I could pass up on that.
Agree with you on that one. Okay, so I want you to also, if you could share with us a little bit more about your background, Grace, and tell me what were you doing before you got into the world of nutrition for fertility? And how did you
Yes.
get here?
Yes. I took a few detours, really. I started studying new nutrition many moons ago. So I've done 2 degrees in nutrition and health science related subjects at university. And I was actually doing my honors degree when I fell pregnant. And it was through my own pregnancy complications that really led me into this area. Through that, I realized that the best way to support the pregnancy and the health of the baby is actually in the months leading up to it. So in that preconception phase, and realizing how much attention women need in this area and how confusing it is, and there's so much
Mhm.
misinformation. I really wanted to step into that space and just provide women with a support that I wish that I had through mine.
And it's amazing how limited of information that we have before we try to get pregnant about fertility and the importance of all aspects like nutrition, stress management, all of those things, or even just basic information about how our body works.
100%. I think it starts really early on where we're just not really taught about our bodies and anything really to do with our reproductive health or even the potential complications that can come up for fertility and pregnancy. No one ever really speaks about how common fertility issues are and how common pregnancy issues are. And then you're in the midst of it and you start to realize that, oh, wait, there's all these things that I can be doing and these changes that I can be making, and there's ways to manage and improve things. But the information's not, it's not like accessible in terms of it's not like just common that we speak about these things in society. If you go looking for it, then there obviously is information there, but that could be another realm of confusing because it's often conflicting and combined with things that aren't evidence based. So it's a bit of a minefield, really.
Yeah, no, totally. And yeah, Dr. Google is not always our friend in regards to fertility.
Ugh, absolutely not. One of the first things that I tell my clients is Google. Do not do those 3 AM searches that I know that you're doing. Get off there because it's often not your friend.
Yeah. So speaking of that, women are obviously searching for information about how to improve their fertility based on nutrition. Is that what kind
Yeah,
of the common searches you're seeing or hearing about?
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's how to improve fertility, how to improve egg quality, maybe what tests need to be done, what can they do, how long to wait before they should get help, what supplements to take. All of these are quite common. And yeah, I think if you were to do it yourself, you get a mix of these usually different blog posts that recommend X, Y, and Z, and you don't really know the person who's behind the blog post or what credentials they have and where the information is coming from. So it can end up creating a few issues, really.
That makes sense. And yeah, again, you're looking at it from a really evidence-based scientific view. And maybe sometimes some of the people who are sharing information on the internet, again, there's no way to really, there's not a way to know 100% what their background is. And again, if they're just basing it off of maybe what worked for them or what worked for their Aunt Susie, right? That's not the information that you want to lean on when you're making these decisions to of what you're going to put in your body to hopefully get you to where you need to be with your fertility.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Absolutely fine for anyone to put their opinions and tips and tricks on the internet. But I think through this stage, women are just in such a vulnerable place where obviously they just want to know what's going to work. Maybe they've tried different things before, or there's that vulnerability that leads people into just trying things that might have worked for someone else, or they might not have, and they think that they have. And so they just adopt different things in the hope that something's going to work for them. But in a way, it just needs that real tailored aspect to really look at a person's whole health and think, what are they lacking and what do they need to support their body through fertility? And that's going to be different for what another person needs.
Mhm. Yeah, so an individualized approach then.
Yeah, it's individualized in terms of everyone has a different diet anyway. So everyone already has a buildup of particular nutrients in their body where if they're not having a particular thing, maybe it's not that they don't have those nutrients. Everyone has different biochemical lab work that comes back. And so we really need to address the areas specific to them. The recommendations, you really can draw a line of what is recommended from science-based information. And then that tailoring, that personalized aspect comes into it because you take those recommendations and you say, okay, what do you need personally from this that you're not getting? That what do you need to support your fertility more so that we can improve egg quality and implantation rates? It's a bit of both of having it completely science-based information that is broad and general and accessible to everyone to look up and to find, and then personalize it into someone's unique fertility story and what their struggles are, and adapting those requirements specifically to that person.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is like in an ideal scenario, somebody would have the labs run and their blood drawn to get some baseline data for what their nutrient profile looks like on them. And then you would then look at the general and then tailor from there, best case scenario. But for maybe women who haven't gone to that step of getting their labs drawn and they're just looking for some support on what they can do to improve their fertility right now, what do you wish people would know about just general eating for fertility?
Generally, that it doesn't have to be as complicated or restrictive as it can be made out to be. So if you did like a Google search and it's how to eat for fertility, you might get posts about how you need to cut this food out and this food out and this food out. And it can feel very restrictive and like a difficult thing to follow, where actually we need to take a step back from that. And if we use something like the Mediterranean dietary pattern as just a general pattern style of eating, then that's the perfect place to start. And that is all about including foods. Let's include more fruits and vegetables. Let's include fatty fish in our diet. Let's include plant-based proteins and really rich sources of nutrients that are going to give our body the essential minerals and vitamins that are required for fertility. So I guess that's the main thing that I wish was more commonly known. So it's more about adding in rather than restricting.
Oh, I like more about adding in than restricting. And can you clarify for us a little bit more about what is the Mediterranean diet? I know you mentioned vegetables and fruit, but can you give us a little more clarity around what that exactly is?
Yeah, so the Mediterranean diet is more like a dietary style pattern of eating, really leans onto those having lots of fruits and vegetables in your diet, lots of fatty fish, lots of nuts, lots of seeds, lots of healthy fat, lots of avocado, extra virgin olive oil. Is animal protein as well, but it's usually kept to a minimum. Having said that, you can still continue to enjoy red meat or poultry. It has some dairy in it, and it has a reduced amount of saturated fat and trans fat. So it's the
Mhm.
most researched dietary pattern when it comes to supporting fertility. So whenever you see studies that have maybe mentioned how diet can improve egg quality or implantation, they're often using the Mediterranean diet as a base.
Mhm. Okay. Wow. Good to know. So now that you've shared a little bit more about what is the Mediterranean diet, sounds like something that we need to be starting to eat ASAP. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see women making about nutrition and their fertility? I know we talked about just relying on Dr. Google. Can we talk a little bit more about restricting some food groups? Which ones do you commonly see?
Yeah, so I think the most common ones are obviously this kind of stuff changes as well between what is the latest trend or the latest fad diet that's going around. But commonly it is to restrict carbohydrate, and the other one is to restrict fat.
Mm.
So when we're looking at eating for fertility, I already mentioned the Mediterranean dietary standard is a great way to start. If you imagine that you have a plate in front of you, and it can just be like a dinner plate, say, we've got a dinner plate in front of us, and we're going to portion a quarter of that plate off to a really good source of protein. So that might be something like lean chicken, it might be your salmon, it could be some tofu or some plant-based protein. Then you want about a quarter of the plate to be a complex carbohydrate. So when we're talking about complex carbohydrates, we want these beautiful whole grains, quinoa, whole grain pastas or rice, millet, oats, buckwheat, all of these beautiful grains. And then we want half of the plate to be our fruits and vegetables. So really we want as many colors as possible. We want to eat the rainbow. And then we want about 1 to 2 tablespoons worth of our healthy fats, our olive oil, our avocado, our nuts, our seeds. So that would be like an ideal plate. And you can see that we want to have carbohydrates in there. We want to have those sources of fats and those sources of protein. If you stick to that, you really can't go wrong with eating for fertility. But unfortunately, it's quite common for people to maybe read and start to restrict things like carbohydrate and fat sources. But we know that, especially for women, these are really essential for our hormone health and really essential for that uterine environment as well.
Wow. Okay. Thanks so much. Yeah, because when we're not in the fertility zone or fertility mindset, a lot of times, yeah, it's really common for women to just restrict carbs because they think, again, that's going to get them this idealized body that they have in their mind. And dim- diminish the role of carbs in our body and our health. So yeah, I think, do you find though, however, that's hard for women to let go of, even though they know now after working with you or listening to you that carbs are helpful?
Yeah, I think it can be difficult to let go of. And it comes from it's so infiltrated in the way that we're brought up in our society and everything. Diet culture, many of us watch our parents, our mum's diet, our auntie's diet, and often it's demonizing particular foods and carbohydrates, unfortunately, is one that gets demonized pretty often. And I think that is hard to get back on the bandwagon and start enjoying them. Yeah, just a note on these restrictive diets, it makes it really difficult because if someone is, say, is in their 30s, maybe they're trying for a baby, They've spent their whole 20s dieting and restricting food groups. That mental shift to start to include them again is difficult. And it's going to take a little bit to rebuild up those nutrient stores that we get from the carbohydrates as well. That would be maybe like another mistake I just want to slot in about fertility nutrition is people maybe starting to eat for fertility and then expecting that they're going to see a dramatic difference right away, where we know things can take a little bit of time. Nutrition's a real long-term game, and you've got to put in that time. It's not magic potion that's going to work right away. You need to allow it time to work. That would be another mistake. And I think it is difficult for people to start enjoying those foods when they have restricted them for a while.
So what I hear you saying, though, with that is that I can't just eat 3 days of a Mediterranean diet and then expect to have a rapid change in my egg retrieval if I were doing IVF.
Exactly. You wouldn't also go to the gym for 3 days and then expect to see huge changes in the physiological, in your body composition. So it's like that on the inside. You need to dedicate the time for things to work. But if you do, and when you do, you will see the improvements in it. It is one of the biggest tools that we have to support fertility is our diet. When we're looking at something, say, like egg collection or just trying for a baby, depending on what method you're going down, we know that the eggs take around 3 months to mature. And it's in that 3 months that they are really susceptible to their environment. So your nutrition, your lifestyle, your mindset, all of these things impact how the egg is going to mature and then the quality of it essentially. So when we're looking at nutrition, we want to have spent the 6 months before ovulation to really build up those nutrient stores so that we can produce the best quality of eggs.
Yeah. And now on the flip side of that, Grace, what are your thoughts on perfectionism with that diet? So if I want to work on my fertility and you're telling me best scenario is that I do this for 6 months prior to actually trying. But to me, that sounds really overwhelming, right? Oh my God, I have to eat good for 6 months straight. Is there any room or flexibility for that hot dog at the baseball game?
Yeah, 100%. There is so much room for flexibility. And I think this is one of the problems as well as why some people might start something and then they lose traction. They give up after a few weeks. So we definitely don't aim for perfectionism. We really just aim for consistency. So just start making small daily improvements. And that's the best start that you can make. That 6-month period doesn't need to look like you never having chips or chocolate or whatever it might be. You can still enjoy those foods. Absolutely. We want to just zoom out a little bit on the picture and really look at, okay, if you have a week, what is your diet across the week? Are you getting the essential nutrients? Are you eating fatty fish once, twice, 3 times a week? Are you getting a good range of vegetables? Are you eating some whole grain? And let's tick off those boxes, but let's also enjoy the pizza on a Saturday night or whatever it might be. So it's definitely not about perfectionism. Perfectionism, it's a real killer in consistency because you can't be consistently perfect. So people have this, and it's really common. We all have this all or nothing approach where if I can't be perfect and give 110%, may as well do nothing. But there is a big gap between all and nothing. And that gap is where we want to be. We want to be consistently eating to support fertility, but not done in a way where we feel like it's difficult to maintain and it's not enjoyable and I don't want to do it. If it's starting to feel like that, you've got to look at it again and think, what can I change? Because that's not what we want.
Okay, that's That's really helpful. And that I think eases a lot of women's anxieties about starting a fertility diet or eating for fertility. Because again, we don't want to think of it as a diet, right? It's generally just, again, food that is good for your body to function properly and optimally, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. If you can really nail these basic kind of habits of supporting your health through nutrition, then that's going to benefit you for your whole life. Yeah, I guess it is taking that step back, taking the pressure off of I need to eat like this for fertility to these foods really benefit me, my life, and my fertility in return.
Something also when I was going through my fertility challenges, I wanted to ask you about this a little bit more because I had an autoimmune condition. And a lot of the literature in functional nutrition, functional medicine talks about reducing certain food you're intolerant to or food you might be allergic to. Some of those that might be really common in regards to that would be like gluten, soy, dairy. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how to know when that is something that you just start immediately restricting that if you just have some sort of autoimmune condition or if you're just trying in general?
Yeah, so I think if you have an autoimmune condition, it's probably best to reach out to someone and get a little bit of personalized support because it's really difficult to draw a blanket rule on something. Because if someone does have an intolerance to it, but then they would benefit from restricting the intake of that
Mhm.
tolerance food. Having said that, the relationship is quite complex in terms of if you have an autoimmune condition, we want to look at your gut health as well. And is the intolerance because of poor gut health, and can it be restricted until we improve the gut health and then it can be included again? So it's a little bit more complex, and I would advise someone to reach out to a professional and get personalized support in that area. For some autoimmune conditions, some people do benefit from restricting gluten, or it can be dairy as well if they do have an intolerance to that. And other people, and not so much, and it's going to impact their micronutrient absorption.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is that you shouldn't just blanket just like self-diagnose and be like, okay, because I heard another person has an autoimmune condition and they were not able to tolerate gluten, that I should just restrict that. It's really, again, you need to figure out if that is going to be a trigger for you before you go down that route. Because from what I understand, you're getting so many different nutrients from all of these different food types. And so to restrict something like gluten, you may also be reducing your nutrient intake, and you don't want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, one other thing that I also had a mistake on when I was going through my fertility challenges is supplement.
Mm.
So one of the most common books that people trying to conceive read is It Starts with an Egg. I do love that book because it has lots of great information. However, when I read it, I immediately went into a crazy haze and I was like, oh my gosh, I need 25 supplements. I'm ordering them right now on Amazon. When can I start them immediately? I was shoving like 20 different pills down my throat for like months at a time. And because again, the research, I was like, the research is there, right? It says if I take 40 milligrams of DHEA or whatever it is every day, I'm going to improve my egg quality. Now, I've seen on your Instagram account and some of your recommendations, that's not the best approach. Can you shed a little
Yeah.
bit more light on that?
Yeah. A few things to really point out. First one being that you can't out supplement a bad diet. So to have a nutrition first approach is what we want to aim for really, because the nutrients are in their most absorbable form. They're with all their coenzymes that support the absorption. They contain fiber and they contain lots of other nutrients and minerals that you might not be getting from just a supplement. So we always have a nutrition first approach. And then we look at really supplements to supplement our diet. So to add in, we have our diet, we have the requirement, this gap, this is what supplements are for. They're going to help us meet the requirements that our diet cannot. So they definitely have their place, and getting a really good prenatal is one of the first steps when we look at our preconception care. But when we're picking supplements, we really want to address our specific needs. So again, like what we spoke about before, what worked for your neighbor's auntie might not work for you. You really want your supplement regime to be addressing your diet, the gaps in your diet, to be addressing your medical history, to be addressing your lab results as well. So there are so many prenatal supplements available, and that makes it really difficult. And they all contain slightly different nutrients and slightly different amounts. Some are better quality than others. So really, when we're sifting through them, we want to pick one, obviously, that is of quality. We want to pick one where the nutrients are in their bioabsorbable form so that our body can obviously get the most from them. And we want to get the ones where they're in the right dosage. Now, I obviously know that is difficult to understand and then to choose one. And that's, again, where that personalized help can come into it. Having said that, there are a few key nutrients that you would be looking for. And if you can tick those off in your prenatal supplement, then that's a really good head start. And then when it comes to other supplements, more is not better. Again, we really just want the ones that are going to work for us and benefit us. The other side to it is supplements are expensive and they all add up. So we don't really want to be just buying everything and anything and taking them all and wasting money and potentially taking an amount that's too high as well.
Yeah, because that might disrupt the way that your body is functioning or responding to them, or put other things out of balance that also affect your fertility.
Yeah, exactly. And some minerals have an upper limit of the amount that we should be taking in, and beyond that, it can become toxic to your body. They aren't quite high limits, but if someone's just self-prescribing lots of different supplements, there is that risk that they're going to be taking too much of a particular nutrient.
So you definitely then would do better just instead of just buying a bunch of supplements, just sticking with starting out with the Mediterranean diet, as you mentioned. And then after you've done that for a while, getting a clue of where you have some nutrition gaps and filling in from there.
Yeah,
But
each person is
understanding
going to
that.
be different to like their timeline. If I was to put it on a timeline, if I knew that I was going to start trying for a baby, or maybe I've got egg collection coming up, the 6 months before, I definitely want to be starting a Mediterranean diet. And then around the 3-4 months before, I want to be starting a really good prenatal supplement that's got folate in, it's got iodine, it's got choline, it's got zinc, it's got vitamin D in there, it's got vitamin B6, B3, B9, so that B12, those ones that can be really important. Then we want to have a good quality omega-3 that's got EPA and DHA in there for sure. And that would be a good starting point for most people. And then if they add on another thing that would be specific to their needs.
Okay. Sounds good. So we don't have to buy or spend hundreds of dollars on supplements right from the get-go. That is great news for, I'm sure, plenty of listeners here. I also wanted to touch base with you because I know you have shared a special interest on optimizing fertility for men as well. And honestly, that's something that we don't hear as much about, right? I hear a lot of information about what women are doing to help support them in the IVF process, or just general in fertility, trying to get pregnant. But honestly, a lot of times men are, off in their own island. It's like a one person show in regards to the nutrition. Can you share a little more light on, is it important for your partner to also be working on nutrition, or how important is that?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, improving male fertility is it's so important. And again, it comes back to that whole society view that has been around God knows how many years, that female, it's always the female side that it comes, the issue when it comes to fertility struggles. And we know that actually male fertility factors account for 30 to 40% of infertility cases. And there is, in infertility cases, so it's 50% of them have a male factor component to them. So we know that it does play a really large role. The quality of sperm, obviously, that does impact the likelihood of pregnancy occurring. So that fertilization rate, that is impacted by the quality of sperm. But beyond that, it is how likely is that embryo to implant in our body and develop. What does the development look like? And the actual viability of the pregnancy is correlated with the quality of the sperm. And then
Wow.
the lifelong health of the baby as well. So are they more susceptible to chronic conditions later in their life? And that is all impacted by the male factor.
How often, when working with clients, do you have the opportunity to work with the male partner?
Uh, I 100% of the time, I'm like, what is your partner doing? What are they taking? What are they eating? And even if they don't join the consultation, they are absolutely part of the plan, because it really does take two. And we cannot let the women sit changing this and that and the men not getting any attention. They are brought into 100% of the plan, because the reality is sperm health, it's so much more modifiable in a way than female fertility. Sperm regenerate every 72 to 80 days. And that is a complete opportunity for a man to really take charge of his health, look at the diet, look at the lifestyle, look at all of these environmental factors. And you would not believe the incredible improvements that you can see in sperm quality. And because you can actually test it, you can have a sperm analysis done 1 month, make nutrition, make supplement, dietary changes, lifestyle changes, recheck in a couple of months, and you literally can see the jump in all these parameters. So yeah,
That's huge. Are you talking about like motility? Are you talking about morphology? What kind of parameters are you seeing changes in?
we see them in everything. When someone goes to get sperm analysis done, they're going to look at the volume, they're going to look at the count, they're going to look at the motility, the morphology, and all of those see improvements. All of us have that dietary aspect where we can influence these things through a particular nutrient and then see improvement. Absolutely.
Wow, that is huge news. So, in regards then for male fertility, does Mediterranean diet also helpful for them as well?
Yeah, it's the perfect place to start. It really is a perfect place to start, because that way, if you use that as just your dietary base, that by having lots of fruits and vegetables, you're going to get the folate if there's lots of green vegetables in there. You're going to get the vitamin C, you're going to get all the antioxidants that support reducing inflammation, that reduce antioxidative stress, which we know correlates to poor sperm quality. The fatty fish is going to give us all of our beautiful omega-3s that support the morphology, the reduced DNA fragmentation, which is an issue when it comes to pregnancy rates. We're going to get our lean sources of protein to support testosterone production. So yeah, it's a great place to start.
Wow. So, ladies, if you are listening, we need to make sure that you send this to your partner ASAP so he can learn all about this and you guys can do this together. And if you're making a meal that's Mediterranean diet based, you're making another plate for him, right?
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And tackling this together, this is a great opportunity to work as a team, and you're gonna need that through parenthood. It sets you guys off as, yeah, we are a team, we're in this together, and
Mhm.
let's work through it.
Yeah, no, that's such an awesome way for your partner to support you through this process and get you to the goal of having your baby sooner rather than later. So I love
Mhm.
that. Okay, so this next question is exclusive to my Facebook group, True Fertility Tribe. The question is, do you need to eat organic?
So no, you don't need to eat organic. I think this is one of those tricky ones because, ideally we would be all eating organic food. But the reality is that comes at a price tag that many people would struggle to get. And that shouldn't become a barrier to actually consuming the food to begin with. So it doesn't need to be, you don't have to consume organic.
So, what about even like dirty dozen list, anything like that?
Again, firstly, let's consume the food that we need to.
Okay.
Let's get all the food that we need to. If your budget allows you to, then you can make certain swaps to organic food. And yeah, using the dirty dozen list can be a way to go, but that dirty dozen list isn't a research-based list, really.
Mm.
So you can lean towards organic options for particular food that you like to. What I always recommend my clients to do anyway is it's they're not at the point where they can afford to buy organic all the time. I suggest going to farmers market and buying the food produce there.
Mhm.
Often, while it might not have the organic label, it's often got less pesticide use or it's been less treated. And it's that middle step. Often a lot of the produce is closer to organic, but the farmer might not want to pay the registration to have the organic label. So it's a step in the right direction. So that would be a little hot tip as well.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I had no idea about that. I didn't even think about the costs that you have to pay for that organic labels. So helpful to reduce costs and also eat really clean if that's something you're interested in. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we close?
I think just start small. If someone's finding it overwhelming, if they're looking online and they think, it's too many changes, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do. I always say just aim for the low hanging fruit first. What change can you make today where you are at that's going to support your fertility? And that can be something small. It can be adding a piece of fruit into your day. It can be adding in an extra glass of water. It can be not having fast food that one time because you've prepared your meal ahead of time. Like start, where are you at? Start there and just make one step forward. Once you've got that, make the next step forward. You don't need to make all the changes at once, but just start, gain consistency, and just keep moving forward with it.
I love that. Really helps reduce the stress in making this change in your life. Just so we can have a quick recap, I wanted to say that first tip is to eat a Mediterranean diet. Second tip, you don't need to go overboard on supplements, but you do need a just general, at least multivitamin to get going good prenatal. Get your partner involved. A man needs to work on his fertility diet as well to help improve your chances. Don't restrict. It's better to just eat more of what you need rather than worrying about what you can't have. And if you have any unique situations, always work with a nutritionist before you just make any major decisions. Was there anything else I missed on that?
No, I think that's a perfect place.
I think
to
that's it.
start it.
Grace, where can our guest find you and work with you possibly?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active over on social media, over on Instagram. So just at Fertility Pregnancy Nutrition. I love a chat in the DMs, so definitely slide one in there. And yeah, you can reach out on there to work with me, or otherwise east-to-west-nutrition.com. You'll find lots of blog posts on there, but also opportunities of how to work together as well.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Grace, for your time. You have been a complete wealth of knowledge on all things nutrition, and it's always fun getting to talk with you. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much. And thanks for having me on. It was, so good to chat. We could talk about this topic for hours, but I feel like we got some really good tips out there that you can hopefully start implementing.
Thank you for allowing me to share these stories, information, and tips with you, or really just allowing me to connect with you on a subject that's so dear and important to your life. I really hope that somewhere out there I was able to reach one of you and to let you know that, again, you're not alone on this journey. Please make sure to subscribe to the podcast and do me a solid and share this with your friends or anyone that you think might benefit from hearing this. Also, I'd love it if you could leave a rating or review from wherever you're listening. If you have any questions or you want to share anything about what you heard today with us, please leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify. And for a deeper dive on today's episode, bonus content, and to connect with others in this space, I invite you to join True Fertility Tribe Facebook group. And last but not least, let's be friends on Instagram, where I post almost daily. You can find me at True Fertility. Wishing you all baby dust. Till next time. Bye.